Hi guys and girls, and welcome back to Xenus Minis. My name is Greg and this is episode 9 of Build and Paint, the hobby show that answers all of your hobby questions like how do I build up multiple highlights? How do I blend a layer in with the shade? What exactly do off-duty Primaris Marines get up to when they want to unwind? And what is the number for the Space Marine Fire Department? This week we're carrying on with the Skitarii Ranger torso. Last week we blocked in some of those base colours and performed some shades, so if you missed that you can catch up using the link above. But right now we are carrying on with the highlights and finishing off some of those small details. Firstly, we're blocking in some leftovers from last week. Using white scar, paint half the cog on the chest. Make sure your paint is quite thin and be careful not to get any white paint onto other parts of the model. Once that's done, paint half of the skull on the opposite side. On the opposite side of the cog and the skull, do exactly the same, but with Abaddon black. Excuse the camera work here, it is hard to keep everything in focus, especially at a macro level. Now we're moving on to the pink robe, and in the last episode we covered the base coat of Screamer Pink with Caribou Crimson, and this darkened the base coat down. So we're going to relayer on some Screamer Pink using a few thin glazes, and this will help build up a transition between the shaded areas and the raised areas. To do this you'll need to thin down your paint a bit more than usual. I'm using Lahmian medium at around about the 1:3 paint to medium ratio. Once your paint is ready to go, take a brush with a decent sized belly. In this video I'm using a size 1 brush. Then you'll need to apply a glaze to the raised areas, building up over multiple thin coats. When you get to a patch of shade, that's maybe in a recess or on a fold, feather the glaze around the edge and this will create a transition between the lighter part and the shaded part. Because I'm using quite a bright LED strip light, you may see some streaks in the paint, however under normal lighting conditions, these are virtually invisible. You'll want to work your way around the robe until you're happy with your layers. It may take around about 2 to 3 coats until you have full coverage, but just be careful not to paint over the transition points from layer to shade, as this may ruin the effect. Next we're applying the highlights. I'm using Pink Horror with the size 0 brush and I'm using it to pick out all of the raised areas. The aim here is to create subtle highlights. By utilising the 3 colours we selected in combination with highlighting and glazing techniques, we can brighten raised areas without the highlight overpowering the base colour. I'm then coming back with a glaze of Screamer Pink and I'm using that to soften the Pink Horror. So I'm brushing around the edge of the highlight as well as the start and end point, and this will blend it into the main layer. By following this process, you're building up multiple layers on top of each other, but instead of them all standing out individually, by using glazes, you're making sure that they all blend together. Once you're done with Screamer Pink and Pink Horror, you'll need to repeat the process using Fulgrim Pink. Using glazes allows for some transparency, so for example when we're painting the Screamer pink glaze over the pink horror highlight, some of that pink horror is going to show through, and this helps create that transitional or blend effect. For the base of the robe, you can edge highlight, so using pink horror and angling your brush, just run it along that raised edge. Now we're going to take a look at those folds, and we're again painting the highlights using pink horror. You don't need to be particularly neat or have a line perfectly straight here, but just try not to get any pink horror onto the shade. Once the lines are on, blend them in using a glaze of Screamer Pink, pretty much the same process as we've previously covered. Then you'll need to repeat the process in all parts of the robes where there are any obvious recesses or creases. Once you're done, you should have achieved some subtle highlights. Lastly, pick out any of the remaining smaller creases and folds with pink horror and a spot of fulgrim pink. Because these details are quite small, there's no need to worry about building up any transitions or blends. We're moving on to the smaller areas now and applying lead belcher onto the armour, avoiding the recesses. Next, highlight the armour using Iron Breaker, taking care not to get any paint between the ribs of the tubes and on top of the shade. To finish up, add a highlight of Stormhost Silver to the rivets and the corners. For the cream coloured part of the robe, edge highlight the rim at the base of the robe using pallid witch flesh. Next, carefully paint a highlight onto the edge of the cloak that tapers from the bottom to the top, so you'll want to use a brush with quite a fine point, and I'm using a size 0 brush here. So we want the purity seal to stand out from the racar flesh of the cloak, so we're going to brighten up using pallid witch flesh. Next, shade the purity seal using Seraphim Sepia. This will make the seal look old and aged, which will contrast against the clean, well kept and well looked after robe. Going back to pallid witch flesh, highlight the purity seal, focusing on the edges of the parchment with some slight feathering at the top. Now to finish up the robe and the parchment, use white scar to minimally highlight the purity seal and the robe. Now we're going to start painting the wax seal using Xenus purple. You'll want to focus your brush around the edges of the seal and paint only a small amount at the centre. Then apply a highlight using Genestealer purple, adding some small spots to make the wax seal look glossy. Now moving back to the white part of the chest, we're going to use Nuln Oil to shade the recesses of the skull and the cog. Then we just need to use white scar to highlight the skull and the edges of the cog. Now using Temple Guard blue, start to pick out the tubing and paint a small curve under the chest light. Apply a highlight of Barahoff blue that focuses more on the extremities of the tube and the light. Lastly, add a spot of white as demonstrated, and this will create a reflective effect on the light and the tube. Now we're finishing off the gold parts, so firstly use Xenus gold to selectively pick out parts of the trim. Then use Runal brass on the corners and also the sharpest edges. And we're on to the final accessory, so using Gothor Brown, highlight the pouch on the ranger's waist. Next, pick out the corners with Baneblade Brown. All you need to do now is glue the torso to the body using plastic or super glue, and we have the chest, legs and base completed. And guys, that is the end of today's episode. Really hope you've enjoyed. If you have, drop me a like, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and also subscribe if you want. And every subscriber is in with the chance of winning a brand new box of Skitarii Rangers when the series comes to an end. Next week we're going to be carrying on with the Skitarii Ranger, and we're going to be painting up that plasma caliber. So we're going to be focusing on the plasma coils to begin with, so I really hope you'll join me for that. Until then though, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.